One Piece, Chapter 1190, just gave us something we have been waiting decades to see. A member of Roger's crew standing face to face with IMU. And what happened next may have completely changed our understanding of why Roger's crew was waiting for Luffy. Because Gaban didn't just protect Luffy. He looked at IMU. He talked about Joy Boy. He brought up Gol D Roger. And then he unleashed a level of Conqueror's Haki so insane that the Adam Tree itself started breaking apart. But the craziest part, Gaban lost his arm protecting the man Roger believed would surpass them all. So let's break down everything that happened in Chapter 1190. Because this chapter is way bigger than just Gaban versus IMU. We begin exactly where Chapter 1189 left us. IMU is about to finish Luffy. Luffy is already in horrible condition, bleeding heavily and trapped on a broken section of the massive Adam Tree. And just as IMU is about to strike, Scopper Gaban arrives. Gaban blocks IMU's attack with his axes. The collision is so powerful that an enormous branch of the Adam Tree gets completely split apart. Luffy is still stranded on one side of the broken branch, drifting away from the battlefield. But Gaban, he's standing directly in front of IMU, smiling. No fear, no hesitation, nothing. He even uses his axes to pull the two swords that were embedded in Luffy's chest out of his body. And then Gaban starts spinning both axes like he's been waiting for this moment his entire life. Remember, this is one of the legendary monsters who sailed with Gol D Roger. And now, after decades of mystery, we're finally seeing what a Roger pirate can do against IMU himself. But before the fight really begins, Gaban does something unexpected. He looks at IMU's monstrous form and simply says, "What a hideous form." That's it. No fear. No respect, just disgust. IMU questions why Gaban even cares whether this creature belongs to this world or not, and Gaban's response is incredibly interesting. He basically tells IMU that he is someone who knows the world. Think about that. Gaban has been around the world. He sailed with Roger. He reached Laugh Tale. He knows things the current generation doesn't. And now he's looking at IMU like he's looking at something that should never have existed. Then comes another incredible moment. IMU prepares to attack, but Gaban disappears. He doesn't run away. He moves above IMU, and from there, he turns his attention toward Luffy. Gaban grabs Luffy and looks at the condition he's in. And this is where Gaban gives Luffy the harshest reality check imaginable. He tells him, "Stand up, Straw Hat Luffy." Gaban is an old, injured man. Yet he had to come here and save Luffy, and he's furious about it. He asks Luffy if he's really going to let an old man protect him. Then he asks the question that hits Luffy the hardest. Is your white form the sun god Nika? Luffy says he isn't going to die, but Gaban tells him the truth. He was already almost dead. And if Luffy dies here, what happens next? Who protects his crew? Who protects Elbaf? Who carries their dreams forward? Gaban is basically telling Luffy that being the strongest isn't enough. Being Nika isn't enough. Having the dream of becoming Pirate King isn't enough, because the higher you climb, the more enemies are waiting for you. And then Gaban drops one of the most brutal statements in the chapter. He tells Luffy that becoming Pirate King isn't some easy adventure. If Luffy thinks this journey is just about having fun, then he might as well go home. Because the Pirate King throne isn't something you simply walk toward. People are waiting to take it from you. And Gaban tells Luffy straight to his face, "You don't have what it takes." Then he literally throws Luffy away from the battlefield. Luffy is furious. He calls Gaban an old geezer, but Gaban has achieved exactly what he wanted. He got Luffy away from IMU, because now the real battle begins. Gaban attacks first with his Mantis Axe technique. IMU effortlessly dodges, and IMU mocks him. But Gaban doesn't care. He knows exactly why IMU wants Luffy dead. And then Gaban says something that completely changes the atmosphere. He tells IMU, "He looks just like him, doesn't he? Like Joy Boy." The moment Gaban says Joy Boy's name, IMU reacts. A sword emerges from IMU's strange circle. And suddenly, this isn't just a fight anymore. It's a battle between the present and the buried past. IMU asks Gaban how much he actually knows about the past. Gaban answers with something even more important. The words of Joy Boy. This tells us something huge. Roger's crew didn't simply reach Laugh Tale and walk away knowing nothing. They heard the story. They learned about Joy Boy. They learned about the ancient history. They understood something about the person whose will eventually needed to return, but Gaban makes one thing very clear. They aren't following Joy Boy. They aren't trying to recreate the past. He says, we, not I. We, meaning Roger's crew, Rayleigh, Gaban, and everyone else who carried Roger's dream. They don't want to live in Joy Boy's shadow. They want to see where their captain's dream leads. And that brings us to the most important part of this entire chapter. IMU hears Gaban mention his captain and asks, which captain? Gaban answers, the Pirate King, Gol D. Roger. And IMU immediately remembers the Great Pirate Era, the man with the initial D, the man who claimed the title of Pirate King, the man whose name IMU wanted erased because Roger didn't just become Pirate King. He reignited something that the world government had spent centuries trying to suppress. And Gaban tells IMU exactly why he's protecting Luffy, because the proof is standing right in front of them. IMU is desperately trying to erase Luffy from history, and that alone tells Gaban everything he needs to know. The more IMU fears Luffy, the more important Luffy must be. And then we get the flashback. Roger talking about the future. Roger saying that someone would eventually be born who would surpass them. They had arrived too early. The person they were waiting for hadn't been born yet, and Gaban remembers Roger, Rayleigh, Shanks, Crocus, Odin, and even Whitebeard. All of these legendary figures are connected to the same moment in history, and now Gaban essentially reveals the truth. Luffy is the person they were waiting for, the man who could go further than Roger ever could, the man who could finish what their generation started, and IMU knows it too, because IMU doesn't deny it. Instead, IMU targets Luffy. Then IMU prepares the killing blow. Black flames gather. Luffy is barely able to move. Gaban sees what's about to happen and immediately reacts. He launches himself into the air, and then we see it. Conqueror's Haki, but not ordinary Conqueror's Haki. Gaban begins releasing it across an enormous area. The pressure is so violent that the branches of the Adam Tree start splitting apart. This immediately reminds us of Shanks' infamous Haki against Green Bull, but there's an important difference. Shanks demonstrated the overwhelming range of his Haki. Gaban is using that same kind of overwhelming presence while actively attacking the battlefield. The environment itself can't withstand him. And then Gaban unleashes his massive axe technique. IMU counters. The two clash. And for the first time, we see IMU taking serious damage. Blood comes from his mouth, his forehead, even his eyes. Gaban is actually pushing IMU backward. The impact becomes so enormous that a massive portion of the Adam Tree breaks loose and falls toward the underworld. The sound is so powerful that even people far away hear it. Nami immediately thinks something happened to Luffy, but Loki realizes something else. He says there is another presence, someone incredibly strong, and that person is Gaban. But then, the dust clears, and everything goes silent. Gaban is lying on the branch, his axe is on the ground, and his left hand has been cut off. Luffy sees him. And for the first time in this entire battle, Luffy is completely shocked. He simply says, "Old man." And this is where chapter 11 and 90 becomes much more than a power scaling chapter, because Gaban just sacrificed a part of himself to protect Luffy, the man Roger once sailed with, lost his arm protecting the man Roger believed would surpass their generation. And IMU is still standing. That tells us just how terrifying IMU truly is. But there's another detail we cannot ignore. Luffy has stopped bleeding. He's beginning to recover. And now he has seen what Gaban was willing to sacrifice for him. So the question isn't whether Luffy can continue. The real question is, what happens when Luffy finally gets back up? Because Gaban has just done something no one else could. He didn't simply buy Luffy time. He reminded Luffy of the responsibility that comes with becoming Pirate King. He showed him what Roger's generation was willing to sacrifice for the future. And now Luffy has seen it with his own eyes. A Roger pirate, standing against IMU, protecting him. Because they believe he is the man they've been waiting for. So could chapter 1190 be the final push Luffy needed? Could we finally be heading toward the inevitable clash we've been waiting for? Monkey D. Luffy versus IMU. If that happens, then the next battle won't just be about strength. It will be about Joy Boy's inherited will, Roger's unfinished dream, and the man who has been chosen to carry both into the future. One Piece is entering a completely different level now. And if Oda really is preparing Luffy for that final confrontation, then Gaban losing his arm may be the moment that finally changes everything. This is Talks with Otaku. Let me know what you think about Chapter 1190. Was Gaban really protecting Luffy because he believes Luffy is the person Roger was waiting for? And after seeing Gaban sacrifice his arm, is Luffy finally ready to face IMU himself? Drop your theories in the comments. And if you enjoyed the breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe to Talks with Otaku, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, keep sailing.